I was with my friends and we got in trouble. And whatever we did, I don't remember, I got suspended along with them. But I didn't.
In second grade?
Second grade. I didn't do a lot, though. I don't think I did anything in my mind. Obviously, as a little second grader, it's like, I'm innocent. But I remember my grandmother sitting me down and talking to me about being a leader and not a follower. The conversation itself resonated with me in my second grade, and that mind, it resonated, oh, she's serious. Right? And so from then on, I knew I needed to be a leader and not a follower. Right? I needed to have voice in decision making. And so I found myself in high school with people who would make dumb decisions, but I would still be like, oh, I'm not doing that.
You're listening to Cultureful. I'm your host, Jess Lin. Here's the first half of my conversation with my friend Hakim Asadi, a 35-year-old Black American therapist from upstate New York. Hakim grew up in the church his grandparents started, surrounded by leadership, family, and community, while also navigating the tensions of being queer. In this episode, he shares stories from his childhood, spending time with his grandmother and in church, growing up in the inner city, and being raised to beat the statistics as a Black boy. It's an intimate and thoughtful reflection on community, faith, family, and the courage to be your authentic self. His stories made me realize the power of the most influential adults in our childhoods. The way they talk to us and what they see in us can truly shape how we see ourselves. As always, you can watch the video version on YouTube. Hope you enjoy. Hi, Hakim. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you as well.
Thanks for supporting and being on the show. And I know you've been on other podcasts, but I think mostly those were related to like more professional topics, right? Like being a therapist. And so I really, really appreciate that you're here. And I'm also super excited for story time.
Yeah, I think it's an aspect that I don't necessarily share all the time in this way. I think stories come out during therapy or these talks or public speaking. I might share an example of something that something about my life, but this is a little different. Like this is definitely personal and more vulnerable, I guess.
Is that a thing that you're trying to do these days? Like trying to be more vulnerable in different spaces?
In different spaces with close friends, not on a public platform.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks for being here then. Extra thanks. So let's get started, set the scene for us on community and family. So what was your community and family like when you're growing up? Yeah, let's just start there.
Yeah, community and family, I would have to say are the foundations of who I am. My family, while it's not the biggest family, we were very close-knit. It's interesting because I don't think it's on purpose at all, but there's the way we were raised. It's like 3 cousins are around the same age. So you automatically had like best friends that you grew up with because we would always be around each other Sundays for Sunday dinner, holidays. And so I can easily identify my 2 cousins who are in my same age range because we grew up together. My sister has that, my other cousins, like it's literally 2 or 3 other cousins around the same age. So it's really cool because you never really felt alone. You never really felt alone outside of your own traumas, outside of your own things. You always had like your cousins. And so that coupled with growing up in church, you had friends, even though, we can get into this a little bit later, but I think that's where I learned the value around community and how it can easily be the antidote to some of your issues or some of the challenges that you have. Like you can always look forward to going to church on Sunday and seeing a familiar face, getting a hug, getting a laugh. Like, you always had something to look forward to in a shared experience. And so I think family and community are the cornerstones of who I am.
So what was your nuclear family like? So you have a sister.
So yes, I have a sister. I have an older brother. I have a younger sister, but she passed away and was a stillborn. And so that changed the the course of my life at 9 years old. And I'm sure we can get into that a little bit later as well. But I grew up with my sister in the household. And my mom, single mom, and my dad was in and out every once in a while, but he had his own place. And so I would stay with him sometimes, but that's the makeup of the family, or my nuclear family, and like how I was raised. Other families kind of came and lived with us for a little bit. And so there were always people in the house for sure. But immediate family, it was my mom and my sister for sure.
And your brother was on your dad's side?
Yes. My brother is much older than me. We really started to develop a relationship probably within the last 6 years or so. But before that, I would visit him when I was younger. I looked up to my older brother. Like, he was an artist. I remember he drew me this. I was really into Batman as a kid. He drew me this large Batman drawing that I want to say he hand drew by himself. And I cherished that. Like, I absolutely adored my older brother.
Pencil, paper, was he like, what kind of mediums did he use?
Pencil, paper, sketch, like that, like shading and stuff like that. Yeah, things like that.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. So you would spend time with him when you were hanging out with your dad?
Yes.
What was your mom's vibe like in terms of how did she parent? What were her expectations? Like, what was the tone that she set at home?
My mom, she was the auntie who everyone, again, we always had somebody in the house. She was the auntie that took in everybody. Sleepovers. My mom was the one who had the cookouts at the house. She threw the parties. We were the young little ones sneaking the wine coolers. Like she was just a lot of fun. And I think much of my music is due to her. Like, I love old school disco, Shaka Khan, Patti LaBelle, Diana Ross. I owe that to her because she played music all throughout the house all the time.
So this might blow your mind, but I'm not sure what a cookout looks like. So, like, when you say she would like host cookouts, like, describe it to me. Don't think I've ever been to I'm not sure if I've been to a cookout.
That's hilarious. Yeah. But that essentially is like, hey, we're throwing something on the grill, right? Okay. So
in the backyard, in the front,
in the backyard. So we had the yard. We had an above ground pool, which was like very unique in our neighborhood. So we were like the cool house on the block. But she would just like basically put out a clarion call to the aunts and the other family members and other friends and say, hey, I'm throwing stuff on the grill. People would bring coolers, the speakers, the kids are in the pool, in the backyard, on our bikes, riding throughout the neighborhood. And so that's another thing I think I value, that I don't know if people, I guess, knew that about me, but I really had a good childhood. Like, outside all the time. I actually forgot how good I had it. I think I was like showing someone my scars, and just like bike riding accidents, playing tag accidents, like, just all over the place. But to go back to your original point, it would just be like a neighborhood thing. Like, you just have the music going, you're doing the grill. So yeah, it's like a neighborhood activity. My mom, again, would just say, let's throw something on the grill. So you're eating, it's fellowship over food, honestly. Like, people are in the backyard, you got tables, you got card games, you got, kids playing tag and bike riding, things like that. So yeah.
But when she would say, oh, she's throwing something on the grill, does that mean she's feeding everybody with meat, or is it like potluck?
It can be.
Or is it like she's hosting? Like,
if you're hosting, you're doing the majority of the cooking. Right? So you're doing like the main dishes, but then other people, you can, like, if my aunt is known for her macaroni salad, we're asking her to bring that, or potato salad, or, baked beans, or whatever. But the majority is like my mom or other people in the house would, cook there.
And would there have to be like an occasion, or is it just like, oh, it's just hanging out? We're just hanging out, like,
I think that's the Saturday. Fun of it. It was the spontaneous, hey, it's a nice day outside. It's, whatever, let's do it. There would be occasions, but a lot of times it was just, spontaneous. It's beautiful outside. Let's do something. Like
today. Not even like, it's going to be nice tomorrow. Let's do tomorrow. Like,
it could be tomorrow, but if it's like today, no, it's a nice day outside. Like, and if no one's doing anything, they're coming over.
Whoa, that is so spontaneous and fun.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. That just sounds like the best time for a kid too, to be like, oh my gosh, like so many people are coming over. Um, yeah, and just community and neighborhood, and like for people to be close enough just to like up and come,
Yeah.
to have like so many people close by that you love and want to hang out with you on a whatever day.
Not only that, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, my mom could have planned it, and I'm just not in the business, so it felt like it was spontaneous.
So as a kid, it just like happened,
Yes.
right? Aw. Um, I know that your grandparents started a church.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your grandparents and the story of how this church got started.
So my grandparents, I immediately smile because they just, I don't know, there's just so much love with them. And I never actually met my grandfather. My grandfather passed away when my mom was like 9. So I just grew up learning and hearing great stories about him from everywhere, not just family. It could be other community members, and his legacy still lives on to this day. So, but to answer your question, they started a church in Schenectady, New York in 1955. It started out, it's so funny that I remember this. They started out in a garage. And then they, that packed out. So then they got a smaller church, then that packed out, and then they got a larger church, which is the church that still exists. They moved into that church, I want to say in the 70s. But it's still going. It's still operating. My aunt is a pastor now, but they moved from New Jersey, and apparently, I don't know why Schenectady was the location. I don't remember that part, but it's to start a church, and that's what they did. They were always community oriented. They were always involved in church in some way, shape, or form. My grandmother was an evangelist. I remember a story about my grandmother like becoming more involved in church. She was 18. My oldest aunt was 2. My grandfather wasn't involved in church at all. But because she was so eager, I guess, and excited and motivated, she brought my grandfather to church eventually. And they both became devout Christians and really pioneers. I would actually use the word maverick in the church because they were progressive in their own way. And so they started the church, and it's still going. It was really, honestly, for me, growing up in that environment, because they were mavericks and progressive, it was always centered around love and healing, which wasn't necessarily the case once I like left and visited other churches. It's like, oh, this is not a common thing, right? It's more other churches and other experiences. It's been really oppressive, and it's been very dogmatic, and it's been very rigid. Whereas my family's church, I always knew it was centered around love and healing because there were a lot of focus on recovery for folks, right?
From addiction?
Addiction, yes. So because it was in the family, I don't know if that's how it happened. I think just when I came onto the scene, this is like the correlations that I'm making. Like, oh, my aunt is in recovery. I'm seeing NA and AA meetings downstairs while we're having choir rehearsal. And it's really a recovery church.
NA stands for Narcotics Anonymous, and AA stands for Alcoholics Anonymous, global peer support programs that help people recovering from addiction. They began in the United States with a Christian-influenced 12-step approach that originally emphasized faith in God, honesty, and accountability, but over time evolved to encourage each person to define a higher power in their own way. Today, both have spread to more than 100 countries, offering community and shared support for people working toward recovery.
And so I think that's what piqued my interest into getting into therapy, is like seeing folks live one way in their life completely changing based on their desires of wanting to be well.
Do you know how your grandparents became progressive and mavericks, and how that became their brand of Christianity?
I don't know exactly. What I do know is they were just different. The stories that I heard, like my grandfather would take the youth and the young people bowling. That was unheard of for a pastor to take the kids bowling, go to the basketball court and play basketball with them. Like, just to be down to earth and tangible, I guess. That by itself was different in their messaging and how they approached, again, community. It was really centered around community and that love. And so my grandmother honestly did the same thing. I remember seeing her playing double dutch with the girls at the church, right? My grandmother has to have been 50, 60 years old at this time, but she's involved and engaged. And it was different for people to experience that from a Christian leader, right? I think there are a lot of people who were put on pedestals, but my grandparents made sure they weren't on those pedestals. Respected, yes, but also very much involved and engaged in the lives of people.
Okay, I'm fascinated by them because just the idea of like even going off to start your own church. Like, okay, so what do you know about their life before they started the church?
Let's see what I remember. And it's funny because the only reason why I remember this is because as a kid, I was always absorbing and listening.
Yeah.
Right. My other cousins, they probably don't know half this stuff, but I was just always.
They're going to listen to this and going to be like, really?
Yeah, literally. So I think my grandmother was a part of a motorcycle gang.
Ooh, fun.
I don't know much about that, but I remember seeing pictures and stories.
All female motorcycle club?
That part I don't know. But she was a rebel, right? So she was, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was an all woman's like motorcycle gang. That would have translated well into how she operated in church. So the church the organization and the affiliation that we had, women weren't leaders, if you will. But my grandmother was a leader, right? She spoke up in the community and in church. And she pushed the envelope once my grandfather passed away, to the point where she started her own organization to help other women become leaders in church. Her and another friend down in New Jersey.
Do you know what the organization's called?
I don't remember what it's called. And I don't know if it's still in operation, but I do know that she pushed the envelope in a way that in our community in upstate New York, there are women who are pastors and leaders, and they always, say it was my grandmother, Dr. Georgetta Dix. Like, she's the one who, helped me, or she's the one who trained me or talked me through this or gave me a platform to actually speak or, things like that. So I would not be surprised if that was a all women's motorcycle gang that she was a part of, because again, it would have translated so well to the life she lived once she was in the church.
And for our international listeners, like when you say motorcycle gang, you don't mean like a gang. You don't mean like a criminal gang. You mean like a club of people that go and motorcycle around because it's fun.
Yes. No criminal activity.
Yeah. And then your grandfather your grandfather started going to church because your grandmother was really into it. Mm-hmm. And then he becomes a pastor. So how does one do that? Like, did he go to school or like to study how to become, or how does one just become you know what I mean?
There are other church leaders in our family, before them, right? So this wasn't a foreign concept. This wasn't something that was new. But I think they definitely took it and ran with it. So to the point where my grandmother's brother started a church in New Jersey. What year? I'm not really sure, but he was also a pastor. And so it just kind of like inspired other people to do things that were connected to the church.
So I'm curious, like back to you, but still on the topic of church. I'm curious what a Sunday at church would look like when you would get up in the morning, and just kind of take me through what all you would, see, do, who you would interact with, all of it.
So as a kid, this is so cool to go through. Actually, I haven't
right?
My grandmother, she would have BET on, which is like the Black television network station, Black entertainment television. And on there, it would be a church service that she would watch as she's getting ready and as I'm getting ready. And then it would go into Dr. Bobby Jones' gospel. And Dr. Bobby Jones' gospel is essentially music, right? So it's choirs, it's solo artists that would come and sing, and it's probably for like an hour. And so that would be in the background as we're getting ready. So we're getting dressed. There might be breakfast, maybe not, depending on what time we would go to the church. And so with that, we would get to the church. Most likely there was Sunday school. And so Sunday school is essentially like your classroom, your Bible study, essentially, for Sunday mornings. And so I would go to the kids group. My grandmother would go in with the adults. That, I think, would always be interesting looking back at it, because I was the kid who always had questions. If something didn't make sense, I'm going to ask the question. And so I never really enjoyed Sunday school. I don't have a concrete answer for you, but I just never really I'm excited to go. That was never the case for me.
Was it like a chore?
It felt like a chore. One, probably because I was hungry. Because we didn't eat. Probably because I was hungry. And then I just some of the teachers, even in school, you have some teachers that you just don't like. So then the subject matter is not interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That I think that was the case. Most of the times that was the
chemistry got ruined for me. I just didn't have a good chemistry teacher, and then all downhill from there for chemistry. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then when you have a really good teacher, you're engaged. You want to learn the stuff. I'm a firm believer in that. So that was the case for Sunday school. But I do remember being an inquisitive kid. And I think that translates well to my adulthood, who now it's less about religion and more about spirituality. And I'm always thinking and asking questions.
Yeah.
And now I have the permission to go seeking, whereas before it wasn't that, right? This is what we're telling you. This is what is true. Even if you're like, hey, the timeline of this doesn't make sense. So,
and then poor Sunday school teacher who probably is volunteering, I 100%. Imagine. And then this kid is asking all these questions that they don't know the answer to, and they're just I'm trying to go get through this lesson.
Exactly.
I could actually totally imagine that, because we met in a class, and I also asked a lot of questions, and I think a lot of the times it'd be I would ask a question, you would ask a question, I would ask a question, you, and then maybe the third person Quinn would ask a question,
Mm-hmm. But I think it's the questions that everyone else wants to know. So, but then we would go to church, right? So we would have the service. Sometimes I would be engaged. So as a kid, I was really involved. So I was mostly singing as a kid, but I would be in the choir doing something. Then after church is also very long. So that would be a thing. So you're talking 11 to 2 o'clock, maybe.
Wait, and then Sunday school started before 11?
Yes. So Sunday school is an hour and a half right before church. So
you're talking 9:30 to 2.
Exactly. Thank you.
Ooh, exactly. That is long. I think also as a kid, when you're in school Monday through Friday, it's just hard to spend another day in class, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think 9:30 to 2. And you're not going home right away, right?
Oh.
Because my grandmother was the pastor, she has to talk to everyone. She has to greet people. She has meetings and, things like that. And so I'm there all day, right? And so then at night, there's either an evening service or what we call YPWW, which is essentially Sunday school at night. So,
wow.
Exactly. So we would eat, either we would go to a restaurant and eat, or we would have sometimes Sunday dinner there. So we actually ordered out a lot because we wouldn't leave. We'd just be there all day. And so I was used to that on a Sunday as a kid.
And Sunday dinner would be not at evening time. It would be late, afternoon. It'd be after 2, between 2 and the next thing.
Correct. So 4-ish, 5-ish.
Whoa, okay.
And then it would be, there would be times where we wouldn't go. So we'd have dinner at my grandmother's house and some of the family would come over, or I would go to my aunt's house and, spend time with my cousins and then come back to church. So I didn't always stay at the church all the time. I would either go to a restaurant or go to someone else's house, but I would always end up back at church.
Until what time?
Probably 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whew, that is a long day for not just a kid, for anybody. Oh my gosh. Like, that's a 12-hour at church day.
Yeah.
Whew.
I never really thought about it that way, but yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So would your mom be at church with you too?
So no, that was an interesting thing. My mom didn't really get involved in the church until my grandmother passed away. And so I had this duality of at home listening to Diana Ross and then at my grandmother's house on the weekends so I can go to church. We're listening to gospel music, Shirley Caesar.
Did you want to go to church? Was it like a choice or was it like an expectation?
It was both, honestly. I wanted to go for a long time. Like, I enjoyed church. It was the community. It was fun. I enjoyed singing. I think it was where I was able to feel seen in like my creative self because I was a singer, right? So I would either be singing in the choir, but I was also like the lead singer in the choir, in the youth choir.
Whoa.
And then once I got of age, I would be leading praise and worship, which is like a segment to open up the service. And so I felt like my involvement was a lot of fun. My engagement was a lot of fun, and it gave me like a sense of purpose. And so there was that, yes, I wanted to be there, but I think there was also this expectation for me to be different from others. And that was a way for me to, I guess, find purpose. I'm not really sure what my grandmother's intention was, but it worked. Honestly, like I'm different from other family members, other people I grew up with. Like I just had a different focus.
When you say, you're expected to be different from others, like different how? Like to excel because you were part of like the founding family?
Well, to excel, not necessarily different from the kids in the church. That, yes, but also like to beat the statistics, right?
Mm-hmm.
To beat the statistics of being a young Black boy in the inner city, and we don't want you selling drugs. Like, we don't want you to think that that's what you have to do. And so it gave me a different sense of focus and purpose to really seek out, who am I? What do I want to do? I have a talent. Like, this is fun. I'm getting recognized for this. Yeah. So it just gave me a different outlet, or it gave me exposure to something different.
So when you went to church, you would be staying with your grandma, like you would go Saturday night, sleep over, and stay until Sunday night. Your mom would pick you up or something?
Yep. So it would be like Friday after school kind of thing, because I was really close to my grandmother. And so I would be there on the weekends. And that was literally all the time. Even into I was 14 when she passed away, well into like a teenager, like 14.
Okay, so the whole weekend with grandma.
Yes, essentially.
What would you do on Saturday with grandma before church?
So, I mean, she would either be home. So I had friends in her area. So I'd be playing with them, or I'd be outside, or meet up with other cousins. And so it wasn't like I was confined to her house. It would still be like my regular childhood. She just lived in a different neighborhood. So I would figure out how to get there. I had a bike. So I would back then you could ride. Well, I don't know if my mom knew this, but I would ride all over the city. So I could easily get to my cousin's house or other friends' house. So on Saturday it would either be that, or I would go with her to get her nails done or her hair done, or something like to go to the grocery store, things like that.
Just like hang out.
Yeah, I was just hanging out with my grandmother.
After the break, Hakim shares a pivotal moment with his grandmother and the story behind his name. So outside of church, we kind of talked a little bit about like your family's community, but like outside of that, you're talking about inner city. Like, what was the neighborhood that you grew up in like?
Yeah, so the neighborhood I grew up in is called Hamilton Hill. It was the hood, essentially. I used to be a professor, and we were intro to social work. And so one of the modules was like living in poverty. right? And so someone said, and a student said, like, you know, growing up, I just had my needs met and it was really fun. I didn't know I grew up in poverty until I got out of poverty. And when they said that, it resonated with me because I didn't know that it was like the hood. I just had a lot of fun, right? So I was a kid living my life, right? But it wasn't until I lived or moved out on my own and into the suburbs. And I was just like, oh, yeah, the lifestyle was different, right? The community was different. I knew my neighbors. I had fun with my neighbors. Moving into the suburbs, I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't have to talk to anyone. I used to, in that class, I used to talk about how it was very different because if I wanted a snack, I could go down to the local bodega or the corner store. Living in the suburbs, I have to drive to Walmart to get something, right? And I can't just get a single Little Debbie's cake. I have to buy the box. It was a difference in essentially lifestyle, which is not a bad thing, but I think a lot of people judge the inner city or judge folks who are living in poverty, but the value system and the value structure that is produced in living in that survival, it's honestly unmatched. Like I really, again, understood the sense of community because I'm thinking of the neighborhood the house that I was in, I could look over and know, like, I remember the woman's name, right? Mm-hmm. I remember going down the block and in this yellow house, this is so funny doing this yellow house, I remember the kids that grew up there, right? And how they had baby squirrels. Like, I remember that.
What do you mean they had baby squirrels?
It's really a random fact, but they had they had baby squirrels as pets.
Whoa.
Right? So I remember that, just like riding my bike and seeing them play with squirrels. And now me and my cousins are talking to them and having fun. And we didn't play with the baby squirrels because my mom wouldn't have that. But it was just something very interesting. And going around the corner, you had the guy who would fix bikes. Like, it was just very centered around community. And growing up out of that, living out of that, it was very different. Resources and the connections were very different.
I completely agree. You said it really well. I think a lot of times people do look down on people from certain communities because of this or that preconception. And sometimes it's not even like because of money. Sometimes it's because of region. Sometimes because of, language, culture, whatever. And a lot of those biases aren't true. And people also think oh, it's so sad, this or that or whatever. And it's just this kind of saviorism. And that's also not helpful, So I really do think from a lot of my living abroad and things I've seen with my own family or wherever, just, the ingredients to having a happy life are not necessarily tied to material wealth and sense of community, sense of identity, sense of belonging, sense of place. A lot of that isn't necessarily tied. And sometimes it's reversed, sometimes, I don't know. I grew up in the suburbs. I had a super hard time because there is very little sense of community in a lot of suburbs. Yeah. So at what point did you move to the suburbs?
So my grandmother, for me, when I came onto the scene, she always had a house in the suburbs. So again, that duality, right? That just I'm going home into the inner city, into the hood. And then on the weekends, I'm, living it up with my grandmother in my mind as a kid. But that was the experience. But when I moved on my own, I would say I was 25 and I made the decision to move on the outskirts because while I loved family, I still wanted to be far enough that someone wasn't just popping up at my house. But it's really interesting because I would be the one to host family, right? Mm-hmm. I would be the one to hey, I'm having a little get together, a friends, whatever, and a kickback, as we would call it. And they would come to my house. So, but yeah, I wanted to be far enough to have my own experiences and to live the life that I wanted to live with satisfying the appetite that I had for life.
I must ask, what does a kickback look like?
So honestly, a kickback, you hosted one for Quinn. A kickback is just
was that a kickback? Okay.
You could identify it as a kickback.
Okay.
A kickback is just like, people coming over, you got snacks, refreshments, drinks, and games if you want to have like entertainment. Yeah, that's a kickback.
Okay. So it's not like grilling. It's not as much super like this is a meal food.
Right.
It's more snacky and hangouty. Right. Okay. So it's a little bit less of like the food pressure.
Right.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
Oh, I hosted a kickback.
You did. You used to make your like dips, like, buffalo chicken dip or, that type of like pasta salad, things like that. Not, steak on the grill or burgers on the grill or, things like that.
I see. So going back to the duality of your life as a kid, looking back, did you do much like code switching between?
Absolutely. I think I had to do and learn a lot of code switching because growing up in the inner city, I also went to Catholic school my entire life, my entire academic career. There was like maybe 2 years where I went to public school. But even that, I felt out of place in the public schools because I wasn't used to it. Had a great time, but it was very different. So code switching for sure, because going into Catholic school, I was the only Black kid in the class.
Whoa.
Again, even in the college not so much, right? But elementary school, middle school was the one I did the 2 years in public school. But then 8th grade, I went right back to Catholic school, and I was probably in my class, maybe 2 or 3 of us, maybe 4. And 4 is like, this is a very diverse class.
A class of like how many kids?
30? 25?
What did the code switching look like?
It's interesting because I don't know if I can identify it or put words to it, but where you are, your environments, how to switch it up, right? So it'd be interesting because it could be a group of, my peers who are Black, we're having a conversation, and then turn around and I would have another conversation with somebody else who's not Black, and it would just come natural, right? I think growing up, code switching is something that you learn as a child, right? And so I think it's a lot of connection to oppression and white supremacy and how what's like deemed as the right way, you learn that as a kid. And so now I think a part of that undoing or unlearning is challenging that, right? But I think people learn it automatically.
That's interesting because I was thinking, when I asked the question originally, I was thinking like code switching between the two communities, like, where your mom lived in the inner city and then where your grandma lived in the suburbs, and with the urban crowd versus like the suburban church crowd, if there was any code switching there. But then it was interesting that your mind went to like, when you would code switch between which race you were talking to.
Yeah, because I don't think I had to code switch in that same way. The same people in the church, same neighborhood, right? So that wasn't necessarily a code switch. If anything, I would probably maybe more so like spirituality and talking about Jesus and God and, the spirituality aspect of things. But I don't think I had to code switch at all. I think we would still kick it. Like we still talk, the regular way, because I didn't need to switch for survival. I didn't need to switch to make someone else feel comfortable. We were comfortable regardless.
Okay, so your grandmother lived in the suburbs, but the crowd that went to her church was from the same neighborhood that you grew up in?
Well, the church was in the neighborhood I grew up in.
Oh, but she just lived in the suburbs, so she would come back to. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm starting to see it now.
Got
it. And when they would talk about wanting to raise you to beat the statistics, I guess like what was it like for you? How did you experience that? If you can be like more specific.
Yeah. I remember in 2nd grade, also a short stint of public school.
Okay.
I was with my friends and we got in trouble. And whatever we did, I don't remember. I got suspended along with them. But I didn't.
In second grade?
Second grade. I didn't do a lot, though. I don't think I did anything in my mind. Obviously, as a little second grader, it's like, I'm innocent. But I remember my grandmother sitting me down and talking to me about being a leader and not a follower.
Whoa.
The conversation itself resonated with me in my second grade. I don't know how old I was, but in that mind, it resonated. Oh, she's serious. Right. And so from then on, I knew I needed to be a leader and not a follower. Right. I needed to have voice in decision making from like second grade on. And so I found myself in high school with people who would make dumb decisions, but I would still be like, oh, I'm not doing that. Oh, I'm not going there unless I wanted to. Right. And that was me having agency over my decision making. And it was from second grade that my grandmother sat me down and said, you are a leader. You're not a follower.
Wow. Just this really impresses me on like multiple levels. Like impresses me that she was having this kind of conversation with a 2-year-old. It also is like, wow, this not only did you remember and understand, but also you internalized that. You took that with you as you continued and, and just like I'm just like, wow, we really do need to be really careful how we talk to like even little kids.
Yeah.
It sounds like that really shaped you.
Definitely. Because I was definitely a follower. Like I was definitely following my friends. And even though we all got suspended, she's just like, you are not, you're a leader, right? We don't do that. You have agency over your own thoughts and decisions. I mean, she didn't say all that then, but I would say that to my nieces and nephews now.
I love the framing of it where it's not like you need to do this or you should do this or whatever. It's like, that's not who you are.
Right.
Whoa.
Right. And I think that's why it resonated, because I always, again, the kid that was in the class that was like, this doesn't make sense. I always had a sense of more in life. Right. There's always, some would say it was like too ambitious, but that resonated with me because I knew I was a leader. Right. I just needed that spark, that I guess the spark to really learn and know that. And because I respected my grandmother so much, her words had so much weight.
Oh,
so much weight.
I mean, just such a beautiful way to interact with your grandkid, but also it does sound like a super powerful moment for you to hear that from someone you respected so much and for her to like see you and tell you like, this is how she's seeing you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Do you know the story behind being named Hakim? Because I don't know if I know any other Christian Hakims or Hakims from a Christian family.
So Hakim Asadi are actually my middle names. My dad and I share the same first name, but my dad was in prison and he was converting to the Nation of Islam.
The Nation of Islam is a religious movement founded in 1930 in Detroit for Black Americans. It blends Islamic teachings with Black nationalist ideas, emphasizing self-reliance, pride, and education, and has historically promoted racial separation as a form of empowerment. Famous members like Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali brought national attention to the movement. Its teachings and separatist stance sometimes clashed with the integration-focused civil rights movement led by Martin Luther King Jr. The Nation of Islam is also known for its community programs, educational initiatives, and prison outreach.
And a part of that process is you look into the book of names and you pick out names of who you're becoming, right? As you are changing, as you're transforming. And so he chose Hakim Asadi. Hakim means the insightful one, the one who's wise. And then Asadi is lion, right? So my dad is a Leo and he is a Leo, right? So he chose lion. So I interpret that as courage, honestly. And so Hakim Asadi are my middle names, I now go by them because I think they're connected to my authenticity, right? Having a conversation with my dad maybe a couple years ago, and he was like, I chose those names for myself, but also you are really living out your name.
Chills. That gives me the
Yeah.
chills. So many beautiful moments with family. Oh my gosh. And family just like say just these like, oh my gosh. Okay. I'm glad I asked. That was so beautiful. Okay. Let's take a break.
Okay.
Thanks so much for listening. In part 2, Hakim shares more about his journey as a queer person, coming out, the experiences that shaped him along the way, and what he's up to now. You can also find ways to connect with Hakim in the show notes. The next episode comes in 2 Tuesdays. Be sure to subscribe or follow and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. If you enjoyed this episode, you can support this homegrown indie podcast by leaving me a comment or donating via the link in the description. Your support helps keep these stories of representation coming. Stories that don't reduce our experiences to stereotypes, but bring nuance and our everyday narratives to the forefront. This episode was produced and edited by me, with advising and executive production support from Ruben Nana Ruben. I'm Jess Lin. See you soon.